This is so awesome. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Freestyle Gospel, aka The Real Free, with another episode of Free Lunch. And I'm sorry, guys, I can't help keep my teeth out of my mouth right now. But this is another episode of Free Lunch. But we are at Dobie Revolution Orthodontics. Now, I know you guys remember from season 4, the first time we featured Dr. Dobie on our show, we were at the Hamden office. This is the Guilford office. Totally insane. If you've been following Free Lunch and our stories we post, if you've been following Dr. Dobie, Dobie Revolutions on Instagram, you have seen tons and tons of like the behind the scenes of this build, the construction, the whole journey. But today we finally caught up with this super busy man to do another episode. So welcome, Dr. Dobie.
Thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
This is literally like over the top. And I know when we were at Hamden, you thought that was over the top.
Truly, when I built the Hamden office a year and a half ago, I kind of thought I pulled out all the stops. It was like everything I could think of. I was trying to make the coolest, the most creative office, I thought possible, at least with my vision. And then it was such an amazing experience that everybody loves it, parents, kids. Then I truly needed to kind of bring the whole vibe to Guilford because our Guilford office was honestly really, really tiny. And I was like, okay, we have to do it again. And then I don't really even know where this happened, but it spiraled into
out of control.
It's like I joke that it's Hamden 2.0, but it might even be Hamden like 5.0. It's another level, and it's awesome.
It's totally another level. I show my when we were setting up for today's podcast, I was FaceTiming my wife, and she was seeing a little bit of the space here.
Sure.
She said, "Why doesn't he just call himself a sneakerhead who's a DJ on the side?" And I said, you know what? It really feels like, someone who really just grew up loving shoes, loving music, culture, and you just decided to take all of that with you. And like many of our, youth or college students who are, entering their first year this semester, the fall, like how they're like, getting ready to figure out what they want to do with their life, they're choosing. Like that's what's making sort of like that really difficult for a lot of young people right now is that they're choosing to, the thing that they love, that they grew up having a passion for, and saying, hey, well, when it comes to my adult life and like my future and making money, I have to make a choice. I have to choose between the two of them. And you found a way to like just break and shatter that myth all to pieces. Yeah,
and honestly, I don't even know how that came about. I mean, it literally, to me, work and play for so many people really is, as you're saying, it's two totally separate things.
Yeah, they have
and it's
to
almost
choose.
like you love what you do on the weekend, and then maybe when it comes to Monday morning, it's a little bit, if you want to call it, back to the grind. And I'm truly lucky that my fun and everything that I'm passionate about, I get to enjoy it at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning. It is like, I walk in here and I'm just like, it's like I built a dream playground for me. But then what's awesome is just, it really speaks to kids and teenagers and parents. So it's not only just like my dream coming true, but it's getting to have everybody kind of be along the journey with me. And then it's just a fun experience for them. And it's amazing.
Are there like when parents are coming in here though with their kids or even, well, do you work for adults?
So I would honestly say 40% of our practice is adults.
Oh, okay.
It's a lot of adults coming in for Invisalign treatment or braces, and then it's 60% kids. And honestly, I think that's actually, strangely enough, evolved to, it's been growing since COVID. And the reason that I don't think anybody really saw in our industry coming was so many adults now have transitioned over to kind of like remote work and they spent hours in front of a Zoom camera.
In front of a camera, yeah.
So a lot of...
I didn't think about that,
So a lot of parents or a lot of adults, they've never really sat in front of a webcam for hours at a time. And then they're starting to, if you want to call it, pick up on little things. And they're like, that tooth down there bothers me. I don't know if I like the way my smile looks, but they never stared at themselves for so many hours.
No.
So now all these adults are coming back in and they're basically wanting kind of like a smile kind of revision and a better smile.
No, so I led with that wondering like when adults come in here, I know like the kids, they freak out over the arcade, they freak out over the music, all that. But like our adults kind of like snaring a little bit, like, or think like this is like ridiculous, over the top?
So the shocking thing, I bet you there's multiple times throughout the day that there's actually more adults in the arcade than there are kids. So it's hard to see off, but just off camera here, I have a full size like arcade machine that has over 60 Atari games. So that really, for a lot of parents in their 40s, late 40s that have kids that are ready for braces, they grew up with Atari, and they also grew up with
Pac-Man
and Ninja Turtles and Simpsons. So really, and even like the racing game we have, that's really their age group. So I mean, parents beeline over and they're playing like, you know, all those games. So honestly, Pac-Man, it's huge. So no. And that's the other crazy thing is when I built this, it's hard to know whenever if you want to call it, think outside the box and do something a little bit crazy and different, who's really going to, you know, love it the most. And you know, it's, for example, we have a DJ booth here with an actual dance floor, and we have nightclub like lights going all around. And the number one age group that loves the nightclub dance floor are like 8 to 10-year-olds, because they're dancing around trying to catch all the lights.
So
who would have thought you build a nightclub and 8 to 10-year-olds love it the most? You know, it's just very interesting to see who picks different parts of the office and kind of connects with it and enjoys it. But it really has hit on every age group.
So you already had the grand opening here?
Actually, we haven't, and it's going to be coming up. No, we haven't. So
I thought,
we would have invited you, and you would have been there.
Yeah, I thought I just missed it. Okay.
No. So honestly, it's because these last pieces of the puzzle, and you know, with construction, it's hard to really kind of get a timeline to all finish at the same time. So this past week, our racing games just showed up. We actually just we have a coffee bar, but we actually next week are opening the cappuccino bar.
So you just got the cappuccino today.
Cappuccino just got installed today, and then we're actually working. You know, we are the official Smile partner of Team USA's, the USA Skateboarding.
Yeah.
So they're actually in the middle of making custom artwork for us. So that's going to go up on the walls. I'm working with a really cool, I want to keep it a little under wraps, but I'm cool working. We're going to do a whole tour and show it off, but a really, really cool guy that works for Nike and does photography. So he actually does all this really cool, he basically gets behind the scenes with my favorite sneakers and then swirls all this really cool lights and then opens the camera lens for a long time and blurs it all in. So we're going to get that blown up and hanging on the wall. So as soon as all that comes together, I would say maybe October time, we're going to have our grand opening.
I love it.
So I'm excited for that.
Nah, that's exciting. So, now that there hasn't been a grand opening yet, when the grand opening occurs, what are some of the things that, you guys plan on have going on for people to look forward to? Besides it being open for business.
Okay, so we're definitely gonna have a live DJ. We might even have a secret extra DJ come in and do a little guest set. We're obviously gonna have food trucks with food.
Dance battle.
Yep, of course. We're definitely gonna raffle off sneakers like we did last time.
Yes.
Tons of things, foods, drinks. Basically, just have a party for the entire afternoon and just have everybody have a good time.
So what are we wearing today? I brought my Superman Reebok pumps,
which I think if you lean back, I have on display.
Yes, I know you have those on display.
So actually, they're in the background.
And what do you have?
These
you have to lift them up so we catch it in the camera.
So these are the 2012 Jordan 6s, but specifically for the Olympics. An earlier release. So they released them once in 2000 for the Sydney Olympic Games.
Yep.
I had those, and I wore those so much and then gifted them to my brother. Then I got the 2012 London release for the Olympic Games. And then about 3 weeks ago, I picked up the same one, but the latest 2024 Paris release.
Re-released, yeah.
And honestly, little details, not much has changed. Actually, the laces are a lot better in the 2024 release.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of my, Jordan 6s are one of my favorite sneakers of all time. It was the only Jordan that I had in middle school. So it's kind of always had a special place for me. So yeah, I love Jordan.
So I think we talked about it on the first episode that you were on the show. You mentioned your brother. How many other siblings do you have? Do you just have one?
So basically I have one brother that's 14 years younger than me.
Okay.
But then from my dad's first marriage, I have 2 half sisters.
Okay.
But they're actually in their late 60s. So they're
much older than you.
They are much older. So they're, if you want to call it, they are. So
you kind of had an only child.
I did.
Experience
because my one sister lives in Hong Kong and my other sister lives in England. So really, and they were out of an age that when I was growing up, they were really almost like another parent.
Yeah.
But I only saw them, every few years. Yeah. And then my brother was not born until I was a freshman in high school. So really, he was kind of a baby. And then when he was like 3.5, I went and left to go off to college. So it really was an only child upbringing. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, so with their, do you fairly like, you know, keep in touch with all of them though still, like with all this, like, you know, new cool things you're doing? Or
yes.
I kind of wonder, like, what do they think about, you know,
so
this whole Dobie revolution thing you got going on?
So obviously I don't get to see my half sisters as much. They definitely do follow me on social media, so they get to see all these cool things, and we connect. Unfortunately, not in person as much as I'd like. My brother actually has been huge part of actually building both of these offices. He actually just lived with me in my house for the last few months, so he helped build the arcades. He was here every night, just helping getting things together. And then
this is the younger brother.
This is my younger brother.
Okay.
Who's 14 years younger. And then even when I opened Hamden, we kind of tied it that the 3 weeks before we opened was over like kind of the December break. So he actually flew up and stayed with me for 3 weeks then. So he also helped organize everything in the Hamden office. He helped build all the arcades in the Hamden. So really, he's really helped me get both offices going. So that's a really cool kind of way that we've got to connect again. He's huge into sneakers because I am. So it's great that he's been a part of that journey.
Nah, that's so awesome, man. Just to have, like, you know, the supportive element of, you know, your family, because there's so many of us other creators out there, you know, small business owners who are trying to do like revolutionary out of the box thing, and when it's, whether it's the people within your industry that are looking like, you know, we don't do that way, or whatever, or just, you know, typical haters or whatever, you know, you need the support, you know, many times, like, you know, to keep the ball rolling, keep going. When it comes to that for you though, like what, you know, I know for me, I'll answer first, because you kind of, you come off really fearless in this space, because the medical orthodontist, you know, space has a very serious connotation.
Sure.
Right? Like it's not a place historically associated with anything you have going on here. So in a way, like, you know, from an outsider of, you know, the medical industry looking in at you, I'm like, this guy's got to be catching flack or whatever. But so I'm like, you come off fearless to me. Like, you know, that's what I've always enjoyed about you. You know, one of the things that made me like excited to try to connect with you the first time.
Sure.
And then has been an amazing sponsor, you know, with this since then. But so what's kept me like, you know, fearless in those times where I've tried to like be innovative, you know, with our company, Frii Branding, you know, we do a lot of brand development for companies. One of the biggest ways we do brand development is by having companies use podcasting as a way of like launching their own podcast, no matter what industry they're in.
Gotcha.
So one of the recent ways we've tried to like kind of be very innovative at one of our clients who were like a restaurant bar owner was bringing podcasting to a bar. Like, hey, feature your own podcast and like use that as an element to create brand awareness and just like community and a vibe at your, you know, bar. And a lot of people previous to that client that we've pitched that idea to, other like, you know, restaurant owners that we know in that space, totally just like against it. They felt like it was like unrelated. They couldn't see the vision like that I was seeing, trying to like show them like, listen, just it's a way to create community around your, the people patronizing your bar, like, you know, and just, you know, it made sense to us. But what's really cool about how we've drawn sort of that fearless nature from doing things that are innovative is this idea that it's always weird, it's always crazy, it's always like gonna fail until someone's bold enough to do it, and then it works and it's successful. And that's what we were able to experience with this, you know, first client that, you know, gave us a chance, let us do it, and we literally watched their space, their bar, go from just 3 people sitting in there to literally almost filled with people engaging with the podcast, engaging with the owner, having conversations about just everyday life, relationships, talk around a bar, around a drink, food. It was insane. Where are you drawing your fearlessness from?
So, I mean, here's the thing. I'm hugely passionate about orthodontics. I think that's, you know, kind of, if you want to call it the ground zero from where I come from. And I do think that too, move over and do something this creative, I think you have to put patient care and like, you know, an excellent smile and bites into the community first. I think if I was to move here and nobody knows who my name is or who I am, and then I just opened this office, I don't know if it would work, because at the end of the day, I think trust needs to be there. So, you know, I was here for at least 5 years in this greater New Haven area, treating patients, building a reputation, you know, becoming the president of the New Haven Dental Society, becoming the president of the Shoreline Dental Society, going to these meetings, meeting all the dentists, and building a name for myself first as, listen, I care about, you know, my patients, and, you know, amazing, you know, if you want to call it work or artistry is number one.
Yeah.
And then I started to just get creative with it, because at the end of the day, if people in the neighborhood know that, you know, that's what you're about first, then I think you then build that trust. And then it was a little organic, honestly, because I didn't, again, leap to suddenly doing crazy things. It was, I just started wearing a pair of, honestly, it started with a pair of Yeezys. I started wearing a pair of Yeezys, and everything's changed, with dress slacks, a dress shirt, and a tie. And it was crazy. I used to wear dress shoes. Nobody, of course, said anything cool about a pair of dress shoes. And then as soon as I put on a pair of Yeezys, and this was like, you know, 2000, maybe 16, 17, I got this amazing response, and kids were like, oh my goodness, look at your sneakers. So then I went outside that box, and then I started wearing like different Nikes and different, and then again, all the, you know, and then parents started saying, oh my goodness, like my kid is gonna wear his coolest sneakers to show Dr. Dobie at the next, you know, the next visit. So then it got to the point where like dad would come in and be like, do you know how long it took Johnny to get ready this morning? He would, you know, we might have even talked about this in the first podcast, but he would say like, he took like, Dad, do you think I should wear this sneaker, or do you think I should wear this sneaker?
Yeah.
And it's like, I suddenly started to see another part of like, you know, the experience. Now, don't get me wrong. I think having a good personality, I think connecting with patients and, you know, and not always having this super separated doctor and patient kind of, if you want to call it, relationship, I think you need to break down those barriers. And why? Because at the end of the day, a lot of kids are nervous, okay? And a lot of adults are nervous.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, if everything is so professional, then you get this, what we call white coat syndrome. And what that is when you're about to go to the, you know, even just going to a doctor, who's had this? You sit down, they start getting out the blood pressure cuff, and immediately your blood pressure goes up. And because you know they're going to measure your blood pressure, and you can suddenly start feeling your heart pounding. And then it's like, now you think to yourself, well, that blood pressure is not even going to be my normal blood pressure.
Exactly.
I'm nervous. So then, of course, they take a look at it, and they're like, I mean, it's kind of high. And then you start freaking, and you're like, well, it's not normally like that. And again, it just snowballs. So that same thing comes over into my industry, where like, you know, kids are nervous to go to the dentist. Maybe they've had a tooth pulled that like was really painful for a week after. For whatever reason, they don't necessarily, you know, they don't think hand in hand going to see the dentist or orthodontist is going to be fun. So now this whole sneakers thing started happening, where kids are now like excited to show me their sneakers. So again, it started to flip the script. And then I just, you know, and then COVID happened. Honestly, I went into scrubs, and then that just kind of tied into just wearing cooler sneakers, because it's just more of a relaxed feel. And then honestly, I visited a friend down south. He had this, like, if you want to call it, a very mini like DJ booth. Really what it was is he had an iPad that controlled the music, and he had a microphone, and it was a way for him to be able to work at his computer but see when his patients, you know, needed to see him, because he was kind of like in the office. So really, it was an office in the clinic. And then I'm huge into music. I travel all over. I love going to music festivals, seeing DJs. So I'm like, listen, I want to then tie in a DJ booth. I want to tie in cool lighting. And then honestly, it just started snowballing. And really, it all comes back down to patient experience. The more you can distract, whether it's the parent, it doesn't matter the age group. If you can distract them and have them super excited to be there, guess what? They're not nervous. And then really, it just gotten crazier and crazier. So I don't think I could have built this office day one. I think that would have just, I don't know. I don't think it would have worked as well as it has, but it's this slow organic progression that now has just become, you know, it just works.
And I think what's really impressive about this from a, you know, for me as a branding, you know, industry person, you know, we always say great branding is about how you make people feel.
Sure. And
I think what makes all of the, you know, what other people in the space might call extra, or being over the top, what makes this really work is that I think the message gets across that you genuinely are just caring about how your target customer feels. Sure. Because if it was about really just cool shoes and video games, you'd be in the market trying to sell video games or sell sneakers, but that's not what's happening here. No. You're actually doing the work of taking care of people's, health, their teeth. And this is the backdrop. Right. And it's a way to segue and kind of build a bridge between them and you, where I can be my most relaxed, comfortable self, which then allows you to be most equipped and in position to help me because my nerves are not getting in your way while you do your job.
Because honestly, one of the hardest things, and it's nobody tries to do it on purpose, but when a kid's super nervous and whether or not they're just upset or they're crying or they don't want to look, at the end of the day, I don't get to do my job properly. So I'm like trying to take a look and they're trying to fight. They don't want, and so like that's a lose-lose for everybody involved.
Everybody loses.
Then they leave, they're stressed, they go home, and then they think about that they had an uncomfortable and a miserable experience. Yeah. So then in their brain, they're thinking, I hope I don't have to go back. And then of course they do.
That is so real. Like I literally, when I first saw your first office, my wife, who had a traumatic experience when she was a kid at the dentist, she needs, especially orthodontist work now. Yep. And so after I saw your place, I was like, babe, I just met this really, great orthodontist. Like you should go there. And because of that bad experience when she was a kid, she does not want to hear it, bro.
I know. So, I mean, that's the thing. It truly bad experiences, like you internalize it and you will never forget it. Never. And that unfortunately snowballs throughout people's lifetime. So again, I also think that orthodontics is in that great, I think it's the perfect way to bring fun to dental treatment because it's the perfect age group that you can instill positive experiences at the right time. Because, so for example, the American Association of Orthodontists, they say that age 7 is when you should have your first appointment. And really, very often we're not doing treatment at that age, but it's making sure that nothing, nothing if you want to call it really bad is happening. And if something does need to be done, then we can intervene at an early and correct time. Yeah. But it's also that perfect time to have that fun experience from 7 years old. Mm-hmm. And then that means when they're ready for braces at 12, they're like, I love that place. And then when they're ready to get like fillings done, if they need to in high school or a crown done in their 20s, we captured them at the earliest age and just set that like snowball rolling of like, no, going to the dentist is fun. Like it doesn't have to be scary. And then we can try to avoid having adults out there avoiding treatment because guess what? They're like, oh my goodness, I'll go see an orthodontist. I had a blast, when I was 7 years old. So it's cool.
Nah, that works. So, another one of the cool things that happened between the not last season. Wow, it's been like 4 seasons since you first came on the show. So between then and now, you mentioned getting the partnership with the skateboard team, like Team USA. What are some of because like you said, when you first had Hamden and that was complete, you really thought that was like the pinnacle, correct? Right? Yeah. And then now, fast forward, you have Guilford. And now, you know what? Whether you think so, I think this is the pinnacle. Do you have beyond this other things that are like tinkering like in your brain to like even take it up a notch? And like not even just, aesthetically, like what an office looks like, but just even your ideas when it comes to how you build bridges with your community authentically. Like, are there ideas ways in which you still have yet to attempt, but are ideas where you want to connect more with your patients, your community? So
I built Hamden. It's great. I love it. Aesthetically, it has, a lot of similar things to this office. But the one really, I think, unique aspect of the Guilford location is Hamden is about maybe 4,200 square feet, 43, which even for orthodontic offices, it's pretty big. But Guilford is 6,600 square feet. So it's over 2,000 square feet bigger, which do you necessarily need to have an office that big? No. By no means. And in fact, if you want to call it the haters out there, there will be plenty of people out there that say that's
you don't need that. It's way out of control.
That's absolutely ridiculous. In fact, I was reading because I'm in lots of Facebook groups and everybody's talking, and when people are designing offices, they're they'll work with an architect, they'll come up with a floor plan, and they will then post the floor plan for everybody else to take a look and give their feedback. And honestly, don't get me wrong, tons of the feedback is great because it's like, you know what, you're waiting, you have 8 chairs in your main bay, but your waiting room is too small. How are you going to possibly have enough room for all the parents to sit there? You know what, you need to make your doctor's office smaller. Or for example, you need to, great feedback. But one interesting feedback that I see fairly routinely is, and it makes sense from if you want to call it square footage and saving money on rent perspective, is
Correct.
If you can minimize the amount of hallways in your office, then if you want to call it a hallway is wasted square footage. So I saw one doctor critiquing an office, and they're like, you should design your office around having almost no hallways if possible. And if you were to take a tour of this office, we don't just have hallways, we have like 8 foot to 10 foot wide,
foyers.
I mean, you could like land an aircraft in my hallway. So if you were to critique my office, you would say it is a ridiculous waste and not useful.
Yeah.
It's not useful space.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Well, I think what I built, instead of it just being an office, it's really a future event space. So what I would like to do is work with local like charities and foundations and host events here. So it doesn't just have to be, don't get me wrong, I hear it all the time.
Yeah.
Parents come in and they're like, are you serious? They look around and they're like, you have to have birthday parties, you have to have bar mitzvahs, you have to rent this place out. I don't want it to be a side hustle. I'm not trying to make money out of renting it out. But it's a perfect place because there is nowhere in the Guilford community that is as big as this, as fun as this. And, like if you walk into the bathrooms, it looks like a gym bathroom. I mean, it's huge. But again, it's great because if you go into most dental office or orthodontic offices, you have a bathroom that, it's like one at a time. Which if I was to hold a cool fundraiser here to raise money for things in the community, you can't have 200 people here and have one bathroom. But I don't. I have 7, so it's there's room here for it to just work.
This is crazy.
So do you want to call it wasted space? Sure, but I just call it, let's be creative and build an office that you can actually then give back to the community and then have fundraisers here. So, I think it's just going to keep snowballing and be, it's really like a function space, which I think is different. I don't think people are really building ortho offices and then using it for different functions.
And I could totally see that here with this space, with the extra square footage you have. I mean, if you go down these stairs behind us.
We have our own like lobby downstairs and everything.
Okay, so that's more or less the waiting or reception space.
Because we have kind of 2 entrances. We have a back entrance and then a front entrance.
But all the actual work on people's teeth is up here.
Yeah.
Okay. And then how many chairs or booths?
So if you want to call it, we have 8 chairs in the main bay. We have 2 consultation rooms, and then we have a treatment plan presentation room, if you want to call it, or like a financial room where we can discuss privately, like, contracts and things like that. But I've also, again, been trying to think outside the box as to, okay, so could this space, if you want to call it, get bigger from a professional use space? And it could, because we have this huge dance floor in front of the DJ booth. So what you can do is I could literally put another 3 chairs there, which are easily kind of removable. So we do things like retainer checks. We do recall visits, which is basically, it's a quick visit. A kid comes in, maybe they're 10 years old. I'm just checking on, are they losing their baby teeth at the right time? We don't necessarily need to have a professional dental chair for that to happen. So we have 8, but it could really easily be 11. We have the 2 consult rooms, but that one over, the one off of the waiting room could even become a 3rd one. So, as we grow in the future, if we were to end up having more doctors working here and seeing more patients, we really could increase, by more chairs without having to do construction.
And how many doctors are working here too?
So really right now, at one time, there's only one doctor here at a time. Dr. Rollins, who him and I have been working together for the last, I want to say 8 years, 9 years maybe. He's going to be retiring in the near future. So it really will be just kind of me here, but we'll see where that goes. I think I'm going to enjoy having, if you want to call it, control of, patient care and not bringing in another doctor just yet. So I think it will just be me for the foreseeable future, but we'll see where things go.
What about with any or like ortho interns, or do you like do anything like that? Or?
So we definitely have like, students that are interested and passionate about dentistry. We actually even had an 8-year-old. I was doing a consult on an 8-year-old this week. And as I was about to leave, I was, giving them a high five. And my treatment coordinator, Amy, she said, why don't you tell Dr. Dobie what you told me when we first met? And she goes, I want to be a dentist when I'm older. And I was like, I mean, the fact that at 8, I didn't know when I was 8. Like, I didn't figure that out until after college.
Wow.
I was like, you don't even have to wait, but whenever you're ready and you want to really come and see what it's like to not just be here for 30 minutes, you want to come spend an afternoon.
Yeah.
She could do it in middle school. She could come in high school. We love it when kids come and visit, spend the afternoon. If somebody is thinking about making a career choice and going into ortho, I mean, there's nothing more rewarding than having somebody say to me, I think I want to go and do what you're doing when I'm older. So we love it when they come and visit. We've had this kid, Zach, he actually every summer, for I want to say 3 summers in a row in college, he came and basically interned. So he took his certification exams. You basically have to have a sterilization certificate and also an x-ray certificate if you're going to take x-rays. So he took those. And then he came and worked over the summers, literally 3 years in a row, and then applied to dental school, got into dental school. And he actually just came back to visit us, I want to say about 6 weeks ago. And it was amazing to see because he has a 4.0 and he's number 1 in his class. And he said to me, he's like, you told me one thing when I was working for you. He said, listen, if you think you might want to specialize when you're older, which means go into something like orthodontics or oral surgery, just when you go to dental school, knock it out of the park, give yourself those options. And he's like, and I never forgot those words. So he's like, I'm at the top of my class. He's like, because he doesn't still know what he wants to do. He's like, but when he decides, he's going to get to do whatever he wants. Because he's at the top of the class. I mean, that's so cool to have somebody that worked here for multiple years in a row to now be in dental following his dream, and we kind of helped inspire that dream, which is amazing.
And this is so he's out of dental school.
No, he's not. Just finished his first year.
Okay,
so he just finished his first year. He's so far number 1 in his class.
He hasn't determined the specialty.
So he's got second year, and then basically somewhere during your junior year of dental school, you have to really kind of figure out what specialty you're going to go into. If you're going to, only about 10 to 15% of dental students specialize. The rest graduate and basically become a general dentist. But the rest then go on to an endodontist, an oral surgeon, an orthodontist. If you want to then specialize, then it's extra years of schooling after dental school.
That's I'm like, why do only 10 to 15%? He was like, I was like, there it is. It's because you got to do more school.
You got to do more school. So for example, if you want to become an orthodontist, then it's either an extra 2.5, or 3 years of training after dental school. So it's a long journey. So a lot of people, honestly, dentistry is fun no matter what you do in dentistry. So if you go to dental school, a lot of people are like, listen, I've already been in school for years and years. I am excited to graduate and go. Yeah, and be done. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a great career.
Jeez. All right. So with the 2 offices now that are like totally out of this world, you've been like busy as heck. Where are you like finding free time to do anything else? Like, are you into anything else outside of just working in between these 2 playhouses you have where you do teeth? I mean, like. So I will say, how do you find the balance, really?
Well, you know what? For the last year and a half, I probably haven't had the most healthy balance. It's been a lot of kind of like hustle. And so, I'm at the office late at night throughout the week. The weekends I'm here, whether it's, literally our video game showed up last Friday. They gave us the wrong dimensions. They said they were 31.5 inches wide. I was like, perfect. The doors are 33 inches wide. They showed up, they were 45 inches wide. And it's like, so, I spent
the race games.
So it took 5 hours to completely take them apart, put them back together, bring them inside, put them back together again.
God.
Again, it's things you don't expect.
Yeah.
So I've been hustling a lot, but the nice thing is I will say the offices are open Monday through Thursday. So I am free Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays. Yeah. Obviously, as long as I'm not like in the office, kind of helping getting things going. So I try to get, travel a little bit on weekends. I actually just went to Florida with my girlfriend and another couple from Houston that we know. They're actually expecting their first baby coming. So it was their last weekend to kind of have, if you want to call it, a couples trip. So we just went to Clearwater, relaxed for 3 days, enjoyed the beach, just kind of, if you want to call it, checked out a little bit, not have to kind of think about work. So it was 3 days of relaxation, sitting at the beach, going out to some nice dinners and just kind of relaxing. So
I love it.
Weekend travel is great for me to kind of, detach.
Gotta find that. You know what? you got to find the time to detach. But I like that you said, or you were very forthcoming with admitting that, it hasn't been the most healthy balance. But I don't think that's always, that has a bad connotation. But I think when it comes to balance, the way I've, just been, this will be my 3rd year in full entrepreneurship, running the studio. And I think it's not until this year where I really, it's a few small business podcasts that I watch, entrepreneur podcasts I watch. One of them said, something to the effect of the balance that we're all looking to pursue has to be, it's an earned balance.
It is. Right?
Like, so really early on, when you're like at the beginning of building something grand or something new, innovative, it's a lot of times it's lopsided. Right. Like, because you're doing all of that groundwork, like you're digging. It's like how I found out, years back when someone was explaining to me in another, motivational speech or whatever about how a house is built. Before you build up, you build down. Right. And to get the foundation. Sure. Like, so it looks like you're lopsided. It looks like you're going in the wrong direction. Like you're not getting, you should be getting this amount of sleep. You should be getting this. And it's like, yeah, it looks like I'm, out of whack, or it's, I'm not balanced, but it's like you're looking for the best foundation, the best springboard, getting everything in place so that one day you could obtain the balance everyone's trying to have now. And I think for me, it's the balance. It's like for some, they're putting the cart before the horse. Yep. It's like you're trying to start and launch a new business, launch a new idea, but keep this balance at the same time. And it's like, that's not how it works.
It isn't. And also, I also think I think I'm lucky in the fact that I also love what I'm doing when I hustle. So I think there's different versions of like that. If you want to call it balance, there is, some people don't love what they do for their work. And so it's a miserable balance, if you want to call it. So their hustle is truly a grind that they don't wake up in the morning and they're excited to do.
Yeah.
And then so if it's an 80-20 split of just grinding it out, not enjoying it, and then 20% relaxation, that gets old quick. But like my hustle, I might not, if you want to call it, get the technical number of hours of sleep that they say you should get.
Yeah.
But when I'm grinding it out and building the offices and doing it, I love every minute of it.
Yeah.
So I really do love my hustle and I love my relaxation. So I think that also helps make it an easier, if you want to call it, work-life balance, when I love my work as much as I love my relaxation.
Yeah. I mean, you end up, finding the moment where you eventually come to a place where you've, earned the balance or, earned your leisure time.
But, not burning the midnight oil all the time is going to be nice.
Yeah. No, totally. But I think, I really appreciate that in this season for me. Just again, as a small business owner, it's fun just like you when I'm doing the grind because it's a field that I'm into. I enjoy it. Sure. On top of that, like I'm still in grad school. Shout out to Johns Hopkins University. In my
an incredible school.
Yeah, I'm in my second semester now.
That's amazing.
So, I've appreciated the grind in the office, the grind, not just in the office doing the, the studio, the branding stuff, but also in the studio when I'm there late because I'm doing grad school work. Then come home, I'm married, kids, we have a 2-year-old, so like the 2-year-old to like today, because anybody who knows have their kids in daycare is expensive as hell. So we're paying just part-time. So 3 days of the week, our 2-year-old is in daycare. Okay. Thursdays and Fridays, she's with dad. Got it. In the studio.
Yeah. Okay.
So
yesterday,
Thursday was great.
Yep.
She let dad really get some work done. Today, she kicked my behind. She mopped the floor with me all throughout that place, and I got nothing done.
Got it.
But I feel, again, speaking back to like the different ways that balance, quote unquote, shows up. Yeah. It might look like 80-20 with the physical, actual like work, like the laborious pieces, right?
Sure.
But I have the balance of being a full-time entrepreneur. I make my own schedule and I get to have my 2-year-old with me at work.
Which a lot of people don't get that like luxury. Like that's amazing. And because you could consider today, if you want to call it maybe productivity wise, a little wasted, but at the same time, you're never going to get those years back and that time back with your kid.
No.
So like, and I mean, I personally, I see kids all day long. I don't have I don't have children of my own yet. But I know a lot of parents say, kids grow up quickly. So before you know it, they're suddenly like in high school, they're going off to college, and you're going to look back and it's like those like times when, they were dragging you around the studio and you were just having fun with them and you maybe weren't getting your work done. It was fun times and you're not going to forget those memories.
Yeah. And I think, it's your point, the kids growing up fast. Like this year was our son who's 13. He started freshman year high school. Wow. Right, so like that was a super emotional moment. Like, why? Like it was like, dude. Just,
I mean, that's like a landmark.
Like I'm like just yesterday, dude. You were like this big. You know what I mean? So, and then now we have the 2-year-old right behind him. Who's growing wicked fast. But to anybody out there, small business owners, visionaries, you got an idea and you're trying to find that balance. Again, like my word to you is, that balance shows up different ways, right? It might not look like balance on the work floor, like you're at the office 80 hours a week and you're not getting all the sleep that you want to get, whatever. So you look like you're off balance. But the balance you get in exchange, like myself, is, when my wife calls me and like is, hey, one of the kids, needs a doctor's appointment in the middle of the day, on a weekday, or like today, we're saving money on childcare because I can keep my kid, my 2-year-old with me. Exactly. That's balance, right? That's balance on the budget sheet at the end of the month when you're looking at your bills, right?
It's not a black and white thing. It is all these different gradients of how that balance comes into play and how it, honestly, being able to merge the two, I think kind of makes life better.
Yeah.
Great.
So you don't have kids now, any future, plans of one day have kids?
We'll see. I mean, I will.
It's still like, you're still thinking about.
I'm still thinking about it. I mean,
you're still thinking about your specialty?
The cool thing is my dad, and this is a little unique. My dad was 73 when he had my brother.
No.
Yeah.
Are you insane?
And my mother was 50. So also there's a huge discrepancy in age. My little brother's mom. My little brother's mom was 50 when my brother was born, and my dad was 73. So I always joke, I'm like, listen, I got time.
50, dude.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Moms could.
I know. That is like the furthest probably you can push it, and obviously 73 is pretty much up there. Yeah. But like like everybody. The funny thing is, when I was like a kid in England, like I used to get made fun of because everybody used to call my dad like so old, and it's like nothing compared to my brother. I mean, literally, when my brother, let's think about the math. When my brother was 7, my dad was 80. Okay, so when my brother was 14, which is high school, my dad was like 87 or 84.
Your dad's still alive?
No. So my dad was a World War MD PhD. Went to medical school at 16.
Wow.
Fighter pilot in World War II for the Royal Air Force.
Wow.
Ran away from medical school because he wanted to fight in the war. And then after the war, went back to medical school, finished up, and then stayed on. He became like a 2-star general, and he stayed in the military for like 20, 30 years, doing like research work on motion sickness. And then he ended up actually teaching at the University of New Orleans in the engineering department. And he didn't retire until age 98. He was still full-time teaching until 98. Yeah. And he made it until I always joke that he never held up his end of the deal because he always said he would make it to 100, and he passed at 99. But man, he had a good run. I actually presented him with so he wrote an autobiography that was like around 800 and something pages that I edited and got ready, and I got it bound and shipped to New Orleans, which is where my parents live, and I actually got to present him with his own autobiography 3 days before he passed.
Wow.
It was a special experience. Like literally, like I was there and I cracked open the box and I like ripped into it and I got them out and I'm like, Dad, your book arrived. And like, he was like, what? And he was like there, because at that point he was like in hospice, basically at home with us. And
oh my God.
I held up the book And I, went to show him. I'm like, Dad, you got to take a picture with the book. And he was just so happy that like he just turned and kissed like the pages of the book. And I got a picture of him like kissing that book.
God.
And like,
is the book published?
So it isn't published where you can go out and buy it. I got those were paperbacks that I got because I had to rush and get it ready. Because his health declined really quickly at the very, very end. He was like healthy until like literally like 99. So then I got leather-bound versions of them later on that I have at my house. And then I have reached out to a publisher. Honestly, I've been so busy, I haven't had time to circle back. I want to actually just ship her the final version of what I have, and then have her maybe work it into one that would be then one that, if you want to call it, would be for the public. And maybe that's a future like cool, book.
No, man,
because he's got crazy stories. I mean,
love this.
My dad has met Sir Winston Churchill. He's got a knighthood from the Queen of England. He's met Sammy Davis Jr. Like you name it, he's met them throughout his lifetime. So I mean, his stories, are never ending. Like he's literally. His only injury in World War II was he was walking back to his tent one night and it was so dark that he didn't see the path turn left and he just kept walking and he walked right off the edge of a cliff. And he like fell like 20 something feet and like literally cracked his head on a rock. Luckily, it was only just like a little laceration he had, like, so he didn't like, break his skull, but he literally like, cut his head open. That was like one of his worst injuries. Like after the war, he had engine failure taking off in a jet. So he was taking off, he had engine failure. And I believe it was in a Spitfire, and he ended up then, he made it into the air and then ended up crashing into a river that was filled with ice. And literally, it's one of the only reported crashes where the way the engine was, the plane was built is usually if you have a head-on impact, the engine just flies forward and crushes whoever the pilot is. And he didn't have time to eject because he barely made it into the air. And for some reason, the engine didn't come flying forward. And all he did was, cut open his leg really badly and there was like a tendon hanging out. But that was it. That was like, again, he's like never been in hospital his whole life. Like I don't want to get onto a tangent, but like one of his only scares in life was he went to the dentist of all things.
Of all things.
So we'll circle back and
of all things
to get a filling done. And he sat down in the chair, and who knows whether it was white coat syndrome, so we're going to tie it back to that. But the dentist took his blood pressure, and she was like, it's too high, I'm not going to do the filling today. Now, don't get me wrong, there's certain dentists that are like, very strict, and some are like, you should go see the doctor. But she was like, no, I'm not treating you until, this was Dr. Lee in New Orleans, I'm not going to treat you until you go and have a full checkup. So he went to have a checkup done, and they took basically they found out from a PSA reading that he had early prostate cancer, but they would have never discovered it because he had no symptoms, if the dentist hadn't have forced my dad to go get the checkup. So he ended up then on his way to work in his, I want to say either late 80s or early 90s, he literally just went for radiation therapy on the way to work and then went to teach class and didn't even think about it, knocked it out, got his 5-year all clear, but all because of like the dentist. And turns out that same dentist that made my dad go and get the checkup was the dentist that was my dentist my whole childhood. And after I wasn't sure what I wanted to go into as a job career, I went to see her for a cleaning, and I said to her, I'm like, you know what? I don't know if I want to go to medical school, which is what I always thought I wanted to do because I thought I was going to follow my dad's footsteps and become a doctor. I was like, do you think maybe I should look into going into dentistry? And she's like, Thomas, I've been telling you for 8 years, every time you come in, you should go into dental school. And I'm like, never heard it. In one ear, out the other. I
never heard of that.
I guess I just tuned it out. And I was like, no, I'm going to go to medical school. So sure enough, she was like, I have a friend, you're going to go shadow him. This was a dentist in Metairie, Dr. Tully. I went to shadow him and it lit a spark. And literally it changed the course of my career. So that same dentist not only basically got me passionate about dentistry, saved my dad's life. It's kind of crazy how it all kind of comes full circle.
Nah, that's insane. Yeah. 99 years old. My grandfather, also World War II.
No way.
Really? He made it to 99.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
No way.
And passed.
That is wild.
Yeah. And he, worked at Yale in the ER, worked for years. At some point, he wasn't getting paid. It was just like they were letting him volunteer
Sure.
because it kept him alive and, he enjoyed it.
And that's the reason my dad did it for so long. At the end of the day, once you kind of slow down, it's almost like you pull the plug on yourself.
Yeah.
And in fact, it was a sad thing. My dad's best friend did what every, if you want to call it, normal human being does. When they get into their 60s, they retire. And he came over for Christmas every year, my whole childhood. And I saw him like 15 years in a row. And then after he retired, he missed one Christmas with us. And then he came back that second Christmas. I didn't recognize him. I was like, Mom, who is that?
My God.
And my mother looked at me. She's like, that's Jim May. What do you mean? And I was like, no way. And just 2 years in retirement and not getting up at, 6 a.m. Having breakfast, going to work.
Vitality just gone.
Literally, he aged like 15, 20 years in 24 months, which it's scary. So everybody is so excited to get like, oh, when do I get to retire? But at the end of the day, like as soon as you retire, if you don't stay busy, unfortunately you decline quickly. So.
And I think what you're looking for really, or, for most people, I think what they're actually, when you say I can't wait to retire, what you're really in pursuit of, I think is that free time.
Correct.
Or that balance or whatever it is. Like you're looking to spend the time doing the things that you don't make time to do while you're working.
Correct. And maybe a lot of people, unfortunately, if their daily grind isn't something that they love that much, then really getting to retirement is almost a goal.
Yeah.
Whereas if you love what you do, then you can kind of do it until you maybe, and maybe until you pass, until you can't.
Until you just can't. Yeah. Love it, man. Well, as always, thank you so much for making the time for us at Free Lunch.
Of course. Thank you for having me on again. It was a pleasure.
For the listeners, the audience, at Free Lunch, we have to end each segment with free food for your soul for the audience, for the listeners. Whether it's something brand new that just pops into your head now or something that we just mentioned already, what is it that you like to leave the people with as just something edifying for their soul, the way food edifies the body? What do you want to leave them with?
I think, honestly, it just comes down to don't let anybody tell you that you cannot do something, because at the end of the day, you got to find what you're passionate about and what you love. And even if it hasn't been done before, if you try hard enough and you work at it hard enough, you can take what you're passionate about and carve it into a new. It might even be a new career that doesn't even exist. I think the standard, just go to school, get a college degree, and get a job, like if you want to call it pathway, is totally changing today. There's people out there that, whether it's influencers, whatever it is, you can go out there and do what you love, and if you try hard enough and you work hard enough, you can also make it what brings home, it's what pays the bills.
Yeah.
So if you love something enough, don't forget the haters. Just go after it, and you know what? Life's too short. Love what you do.
What do you have to tell the people about managing fear? What do you say to that?
I think fear is a scary thing, but I think truly jumping in head first, which, the funny thing is, the thing I'm most afraid of is the spiders. Okay. I'm terrified of them. Like, I'm not, like, for years and years and years, I couldn't even kill like a spider that's this big. But the funny thing, over the last couple of years, my girlfriend will literally catch me on my phone on Instagram, and she's like, why are you watching tarantula videos when you hate spiders? And it's like, you know what? I don't know. It's like, I feel like if I can just force myself to watch it, now I'll go and I'll start to kill a spider. Whereas before, I would run like I was a little kid, screaming the other direction. But again, if you just honestly face your fears, you can get past them.
Hey, well, you heard the man. Let them know where they can find you on IG.
So Dobie, so I tried to make it all easy. It's Dobie Revolution is our Instagram. It's our Facebook. It's our website.
Everywhere.
It's everywhere. And we actually just launched our own video game recently. It's called Skate Revolution. So you can check it out at dobierevolution.com. It's a whole skateboarding video game of me and my scrubs. And you basically got to jump and catch as many sneakers as you can. Insane. But you got to dodge the popcorn, because you know why? Popcorn's bad for braces.
Popcorn's bad for braces. Love it, man. It's free lunch. Free food for your soul, guys.
Over and out. Thanks a lot.
Peace.
That was awesome.